So here we are on our day 3 of our Supercharger Gym. We have Russell Masters, who is the founder and CEO, co-founder and CEO. I guess I'm one of the founders of Creatively Disruptive. And Russell is the Wizard of Ops, we call him. He is our technical guru. And he's going to be walking everybody through building out the correct audience and how to build audiences using, Facebook ad manager, business manager. This is really the gold. It's a little heavy lifting, so walk through it, but you'll actually get a sense of how powerful the system is as he goes through it and shows all the things that it can do and what you should be looking for. And really, it's the exciting part of marketing in my understanding or my feeling. So, Russell, I'll let you take it away.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay, so let me just share my screen so I can show everybody what's going on. Get that out of the way. All right. So this is all done. So a little caveat here. This is all done through the Facebook Ads Manager. So I've got a couple of screens. So if you see me looking up there, I'm looking at notes and dragging stuff out. This is all done through the Facebook Business Manager. So before we start, anybody that's watching this, if you don't have a Facebook Business Manager account, which is a business account tied to your personal Facebook page, then what you need to do is go to business.facebook.com. And if you don't see this page and instead you see a page that looks like this, then you do have a Facebook Business Manager account. It just must have been set up for you at some stage, which is not uncommon. If you do see this page, then just click on the Create Account and it'll ask you to log into your personal Facebook page first. And then there's just a couple of steps, fill in some business information, and you are up and running. Now, another thing before we start, this covers a platform that has hours and hours of training, and we're going to cover a very small part of it. And in our Gymnastics Marketing Academy, which everybody can get for whatever they can afford, there's a lot of detail and goes into everything that I'm talking today, but also everything else around how to build Facebook ads and all of the different moving parts and bits and pieces within the Facebook Business Manager. So do take advantage of that. Once you've got a Business Manager account, though, you have an interface that will look somewhat similar to this when you log into your Ads Manager. And just so that there's a bunch of tools on the left-hand side, and the one you're going to be using probably 99% of the time is this Ads Manager, and the other 1% will probably be this Business Settings. For today, we're just going to be sitting in this Ads Manager because that's really what we're talking about. And the Ads Manager comprises of 3 parts. There's a campaign. So what do we add? Like the whole box of what we're advertising and everything that is wrapped up in that. So what's the campaign? Who are we targeting? When are we doing it? How much are we spending? What are we saying? What images we like? So everything within a marketing or advertising campaign. And an advertising campaign is comprised of ad sets. And so the ad sets is another container, and you can have more than one. And this part is the one that we're going to focus most on today. This is where it houses basically the who. So the who and the where. So who are we going to advertise to and where are we going to advertise? Obviously, this is the Facebook platform, but are we going to advertise in the Facebook newsfeed, on Instagram, on mobile, on desktop, and all of these other things? And then finally, within that, then you actually have the advert itself. So there's 3 parts to it, and you need to create an ad campaign in order to create an ad set. Then that will then allow you to create an ad. We're going to walk through quite quickly on the campaign and quite quickly on the ads side of it because we went through some messaging in the Supercharge, and spend more time in the ad set, which is really the crucial part because we've seen ads with long convoluted copy and amazing graphics do better or worse than ads with just a single line of text and a really average graphic. Often the difference is the targeting, because you can have the best ad in the world, but if your targeting's off, right? If you're targeting people that don't have kids that are ready to enroll in your gymnastics club, swim club, dance club, cheer, tumble, or anything like that, then it's just not going to work. So before we jump into this ad set side of things, I'm just going to show you very quickly what this interface looks like, so that when you come here and you're brand new business manager, you're not left wondering, oh, well, where do I start? And again, do hook into that academy, because we take through every step in a detailed lesson. And so the first thing we want to do when we're in this ads manager is we've got this green create button. So when we click on this, we'll get a guided wizard that'll take us through creating an ad campaign. For this one, and to be honest, for most of your users, I would say use this traffic campaign. And we're using a traffic one in this example today. And there's a reason for it. It's because it has the ability to create an ad that will send people to your website. It has the ability to create an ad that will allow people to call you from the ad, and it also allows you to create an ad that will allow people to connect to, say, a Facebook event. Let's say you're promoting an event or something like that. There are a bunch of different, and we call these campaign objectives. And an objective is, I have a campaign and this is the outcome that I want. So do I just want to get brand awareness? Well, if you do, then maybe you'd want to use something like this. And one of the biggest tips I can give you is that, see these little information bubbles on the end of each one? Well, as you scroll over, it will give you just a little bit of context as to, video views. I mean, it sounds logical, show people video ads, but it's kind of nice sometimes to just get a little bit of context, especially when you see something like engagement. Well, what does that mean? Get more page likes, event responses, or post reacts, comments, or shares. So you can kind of go through each of these and get a little bit of an understanding as to what they do. And you'll see by this traffic one as to why, especially for this and for people getting started, I think this is a really good one to start with. Send people to a destination like a website, Facebook or event, Facebook Messenger conversation. They don't list call now, but that's another one of those objectives. You don't need to change the buying type. And to be honest, you probably don't even need to use this conversion column at all. Maybe when you're a little bit, when your ad campaigns are a little bit more advanced, maybe your knowledge is a bit deeper, you can start using things like conversion campaigns. But for now, my recommendations would be, if you want to use brand awareness, actually use reach. If you want to send people to your website or Messenger, an event or anything like that, use traffic. If you want to get more likes, more page likes, use engagement. And I would just use those three for now. So that's the reach for brand, traffic to go to off the website, and engagement if you want to get more likes, and build up your page following, build up your Facebook community of parents in your community. And please, if anybody has any questions, I can't see you because you guys are all up there, so do just butt in, or Ella will be keeping an eye out as well. She can tell me to stop. So this is an interactive lesson, so you don't have to wait for the end. We can do some Q&A at the end as well. But if you have a question about something that I'm talking about, yeah, just let me know. So I have this campaign that I prepared earlier. And so I'm going to walk through it, and there's not a lot of stuff in it, but there's enough in it that will, kind of give us the ability to build out, importantly, obviously, the ad set, but I'll go through each setting as well. So one of the first things is make sure that you always put like a good name, because by default, it'll just call it new campaign, a new ad set, new ad, which when you've got one or two is fine. But, when you've been doing this in your ad account for, 6 months, a year, or whatever, and you've got a ton of them in there, it makes it really, really hard to actually distinguish what the heck is what in there. So we call this a naming convention. And you'll see what we've, like in this one here, I've called this campaign a Call Now Kids Activity Center Traffic Objective. And so my naming convention is, what's the objective? What's the I guess the goal of my campaign? I'm looking for phone calls. This is a Call Now ad. who is it to? So I'm calling this Kids Activity Centre. Yours might be local mums, local parents, whatever, something to distinguish. And I've put a traffic objective on the end, because when I came in here, I was using a traffic objective. And this is really good, because what it allows you, when you've got a list of different campaigns that are either running or have run in the past, it allows you to very quickly go through and say, oh, that was a traffic one, it was a reach one, it was an engagement one, and understand, you know, what campaign is what. As you start to understand like the metrics and, you know, the things that you're needing to look at, this becomes even more important, because what you have is different things that you would look at for visits to your website than you would for page likes. So if you have a page likes campaign, you're probably not going to get very many visitors to your website. So understanding what campaign objective is being used by writing it in the name is really, really important. We'll go through there into the next stage, and this is the gold part, right? This is the ad set, and in here, so once you've created your campaign, you'll be taken through to a page that looks like that. So we've got the campaign there. You put the name in. There's not really much you're going to do in there, except for maybe put your budget in there. And I'll touch on budget really quickly. For most people, whether you're in unless you're in a really super small rural community, but for most people with a, you know, sort of like local audience of, I don't know, 15, 20,000 plus, any, you know, $20 to $25 a day is actually a really good amount. You'll get a good opportunity to reach those people with that money. Too much more, a lot of, unless you've got like a really big audience getting up into the 100, 150,000, too much more money, people might start seeing the ads too many times, which can put people off. Too little, and you might find that you're just not reaching enough of people within your audience. So, you know, $5, if you're doing, you know, only got $5 a day, I would actually recommend probably just boosting posts, so just getting a post and boosting it to your Facebook community. The minimum, people often ask me, well, what's the minimum I could spend? I would say the absolute minimum you'd ever want to spend on Facebook is probably $10 a day. I'd be really shooting for about 15. So that just kind of gives you some ideas. Bottom line, 10, ideally 15. But if you can, because I know things are, you know, tough right now, but if you can get up to that sort of $20 to $25 a mark, if the you know, if the population that you're, you know, targeting is kind of around a 20,000 or higher. And even if you've got a huge population, you know, that amount of money will, you know, just constantly chip away at people. At the end of the day, when you start getting results, the biggest indicator of how much money you should spend is how many results you want. So if you're spending $20, you're getting a reasonable amount of results, and you want more results, spend more money. But just be, you know, you just have to be cognizant of, you probably can't spend $200 a day, because you'll, you know, reach everybody, and everybody be seeing your ads too many times. So in this ad set, so we've created the campaign, it's traffic objective. Now we're in the ad set, and this is the part where we're going to, you know, look at where we put our budget. We're going to look at our audience and our demographics, our ages, our genders. We're going to look at our location around the gym, and then we're going to decide where it's going to be placed. You know, is it going to be placed on Facebook and Instagram? And I'm going to make that super easy for you. We've got a few other things which will also make super easy for you, because there's a lot of options in here which, to be honest, half the time we don't actually need to play around with. So while this looks, you know, can look very daunting, if you just literally go through it step by step, it kind of makes a lot of sense. So the first thing, and not unlike the campaign objective when you're creating it, naming is important, because if you've got one campaign and maybe you've got a couple of ad sets, it would make sense for each one to be a slight descriptive name around what this is. So now we're calling this as a call now ad for free trial. Okay, so so this ad set is containing an ad that's going to be about, it's a call now, and it's an ad for getting people for a free trial. So whatever helps you to look at this and go, oh, I've got an idea as to what that is. We'll help you. So you put your name in, you're going to scroll down here and you're going to choose a couple of options here. You've got website as one option, and that website in itself gives you the option to also promote to a Facebook event, also promote have a phone number on your ad. So it contains a couple of different options. App, you're probably not going to use unless you actually have a mobile app and you're wanting to promote it. That's a whole other lesson. Messenger, that's another good option where you can actually create an ad and then people will respond in Facebook Messenger. So you might say, contact us for a free trial, send in Messenger, and that starts a conversation in Facebook Messenger, and then you can reply to them and negotiate to get them into the gym. Or WhatsApp, which is, if you have a community that has that you think uses WhatsApp a lot, then you could use that. Personally, we've spent probably $1 million on ads, at least for kids activity centers, and have never used WhatsApp and get stellar results. I just personally not worry about it. The two options you probably look at: website or Messenger. Dynamic creative, again, I would just leave this. This is a whole nother thing. It's not going to impact you, and it just creates a whole lot more complexity. It is a very good tool once you get maybe a lot more advanced in things, but right off the bat, you don't need dynamic creative. So that leads us down to budget and schedule. So all we've had to do really is put our ad name in, our ad set name in, and decide whether it's going to be a website or a messenger. We're going to put a budget in. So here we're looking at, say $20 a day. This estimated daily link clicks, if it comes up, can be a good indicator. You can see that, oh, okay, for $20 a day, I'm going to get sort of probably around about, I don't know, maybe 100 link clicks a day. It's just an estimate, right? It's not definitive. You're not going to be guaranteed that. It's just giving you a bit of an indication. The schedule, again, 9 times out of 10, you're not even going to touch this because the start date is whenever the start date. Now, this is an older one. So if this is a brand new one, it would actually have today's date in and have pretty much the current time. The only time you'd actually want to touch the schedule is if you want to set an end date. And this is really, really helpful, especially if, let's say, you're promoting a kids night out or parents night out or something, or a camp or something on your Facebook events and your Facebook page, and it's for like 2 weeks time, and you're creating an ad to promote that, where you could set an end date and say, what, I'm going to run this ad, but I need it to stop on the 22nd of January, and I'm going to stop it at 12 a.m. or whatever time you want to stop it. And that's just a good safeguard, because it means that you don't have to worry about, once you've got the ad running, that on that date, at that time, that ad's going to stop automatically for you. So that can be really, really helpful. As I said, unless you have a reason to put an end date in there, you don't need to touch this. So again, we're down to here, we've put a name in, we've chosen website or messenger, and we've put a budget. We probably keep scrolling all the way past there, and now we get into the audience, and this is where we're going to spend a bit more time. So the audience is critical, and there's a few things in here. One of the biggest things that I can tell you is that testing is really, really important. However, what we're going to show you today is something that we've tested thousands of times and have spent a lot of money on, and so we kind of know what works and what doesn't work, and how to get good results. But in saying that, there's a lot of variances, and from town to town, from city to city, from suburb to suburb, different locations. Sometimes you might get slight different nuances that over here it works this way, over here it works that way. But one of the things that we do know for sure is that the way that we find the right people works pretty much every time. So the first thing we want to look at is we want to look at these at locations. So again, you've got this little info tab over it. So we're talking about enter one or more global regions, countries, states, cities, postcodes, addresses, or designated market areas, which are, you know, they've got different marketing areas for different states, to show or exclude your ad to people in those locations. Now, what this means is that, you know, as you can see over here, we've got a potential reach of 220 million people. So it's probably a little bit large. Your town's going to be a little bit smaller, and the location currently is the United States. So if we went and instead of targeting the United States, which is just kind of come up as a default for you, let's go to, let's pretend that we have a gym in down the road from Facebook, which is in Hacker Way. So you can put, you can type an actual address in here, and by default, it'll give you a 10-mile radius. And so if we have a look, here, we can see now that we're saying our gym is located at 2 Hacker Way, and by default, it's going to target people 10 miles within a 10-mile radius of our gym. Now, the reason I love this this particular one is because people over in Fremont probably aren't going to come over here to our gym. So one of the things that we can do with this radius is we can actually change it either by dragging a slider, or we can change it by typing a number in there. And as we type, you know, put a radius or a distance in there from our gym, which is in the center, you can see we have a little bit more granular control around how we target. So, you know, we've got our gym here and we're saying within 2 miles. So that's great because it's not, you know, we might know that, you know, people from Newark and Fremont aren't going to come over to our gym. But we also go, well, you know, but people from, you know, Atherton or Palo Alto, Redwood, maybe they do come to our gym. So the other thing that you can do here, which is very, very cool, is you can use this option, which is called drop pin. So when I click on drop pin, you can see I get this pin. And what I want to look at is I want to think about, if I know that this is a 2-mile distance, if I can drop this and have small radiuses, and this is basically telling me or telling Facebook where I want to target. So I could drop that onto Redwood City, and if we go up to here, I could change that to 2 miles as well. And now we've got a couple of locations, and I don't know why they don't make this bigger. It's always been a bugbear of mine, but they have these little zoom out and zoom in buttons here that you can sort of get a little bit more granular, and you can use your mouse to just move it around. So that's dropping a pin and also adding a physical address. We've got our physical address with a radius, and we've got a pin that we can drop as many pins as we want. We can drop another one over here if we want. And you know, again, you can just put whatever address, whatever distance you want. And the final thing is you can also add a zip code. Now, zip codes work really, really well. I actually don't know what the zip code is for 2 Hacker Way, so I'm going to use a zip code that I do know, 85374, because that's where we are. You can put a zip code in here, and zip codes work really, really well because you scroll down here. What zip codes do is, instead of having a circular radius, which is great for, you know, if you're just looking to capture a particular location, radiuses, zip codes work really, really well, excuse me, because they actually define a very specific zip code. And you can see the way that this is done here. They're saying, okay, that's the area. So people everybody within that zip code is going to be targeted. I'm not sure if this is going to work, but if I go 85375, hopefully that'll be next door to it. I'll look at that. So now we've got another zip code, and so you can see what we're doing is we're actually able to put zip codes in here next door to each other and build our targeting and say, okay, in this area, we want to target people in this zip code and people in this zip code. Where the zip codes and any one of these addresses also works very, very well is that you do have the option to exclude. So if I type in exclude and go 8, oh, thank you, Facebook. sometimes Facebook bugs out and will do weird things, as it just has done here. So we'll just go back into it. So if I type the 85376, let's see if we're on a lucky streak. No, we're not. Okay, let's go 373. So I'm going to, if I want to exclude a zip code, so let's say, for example, we know that this is a very industrial area. We could actually get a zip code, especially if we were using radiuses. Scroll up here. So if we were using a radius search, I'm just going to zip in here a little bit further. If we were using a radius, I could say include this radius, but exclude this zip code, because this zip code is is an industrial area, or it's, we know it doesn't have, maybe it's a real young area, maybe it's a varsity area or something like that, and doesn't have our targeted parents. So for whatever reason, if you want to exclude a zip code, or if you want to exclude an address, or if you want to exclude a PIN, you can do that very easily. So what this gives us the power to do is to say, find people in this area, but don't target people in this area. And as you can see, there's a lot of very granular controls that you have around where your audience is. And with that, you're now defining the key parameters that will allow you to now go, okay, that's where my people, where my community is. That's where the people are going to potentially come to my gym or my swim school or my dance class. That's where they live. The next stage is we're going to say, well, who are those people? Before I move on to that, because that can get a little bit heavy. Does anybody have any questions on just on that zip code, physical address, or pin dropping option? No, we're good. All right, cool. Okay, so once we've got our location, we know exactly where we want to target people. The next thing is we have to start thinking about, right, well, who are we going to target? So we've got an age option in here. You can change this, and sometimes we do. I would actually suggest starting off with not changing it. One of the things with Facebook, well, pretty much any pay-per-click type of advertising or impression-based advertising, the stricter you get with your targeting, sometimes the more expensive it can get. Now, when you've got something like Facebook, which has what I believe is one of the smartest algorithms around, I can almost guarantee that if I run an ad for people aged between 28 and 58, or I run that same ad and just leave that age open, Facebook will find the people of the same age, because Facebook has a really good understanding of people. It has a really good understanding of your Facebook page. It knows who visits you, and if you've got a pixel on your website, which is another lesson, and again we do cover that step by step in the academy, how to do it, how to put it onto your website. Then if you've got this thing called a pixel wizard, which is a way for Facebook to track who visits your website, they also know who visits your website, so they get a really good idea of who engages with your business. So they're probably not going to show your ad to a 65-year-old person who has no interest, but they might show it to a 65-year-old person who is a grandparent. We've seen great results from grandparents signing kids up for a free trial or paying for gymnastics. Likewise, they might not show you, they probably won't show your ads to 21-year-old people who aren't, like, especially if you're trying to target parents through the interest, but they will show your ad to probably people between the ages of 28 and 58. So Facebook's algorithm, you can kind of let it do a lot of the heavy lifting. And the best way to understand what we're trying to do here is that we're not trying to control what Facebook does. We're trying to give Facebook some guidelines as to what it needs to do. And think about the Facebook algorithm as being way smarter than you. You're just kind of giving it some parameters to work with, and then it's going to go out and find those people. So as I said, with the age, if you know the ages, you can you can definitely try it out. You can, maybe start with, say, hey, I think, young parents might be around 28, and maybe the oldest parents might be around 58. There's definitely, just test it out. We quite often, I think we have quite a broad mix. Sometimes we'll leave it right open. I think we quite often will start off with leaving it open, but a lot of times we might also put some age brackets in there if we want to tighten up those results. But from a lot of the data that I've looked at, from compiling a whole lot of ads, we find typically that Facebook's going to find people of the right age. Similarly with gender, if I leave gender open, I can almost guarantee that this campaign, after I've spent a couple of $1,000s, will probably be 78% female, if not higher, and 15, 20, 22% male. And understanding that there are dads out there who enroll their kids in gymnastics, or at least talk to their wives, as Andy and I probably would do. So allowing it to target all genders and allow Facebook to do the work for you can work really well. And you'll find that Facebook's not going to go 50% male, 50% female. Facebook's goal is to get you results. So I would leave that as all genders, unless there is a reason to do female. So maybe it's maybe you're doing like Mummy and Me classes, then you might target females, right? So just think about what that objective is as well. The detailed targeting, this is where once we've got our location, we've decided whether or not we're going to choose ages and genders. This is now the part that we're really going to tell Facebook, okay, so I'm looking for people that live in this area that are aged between this, are either male or female, but this is the type of person that I'm looking for. So as you know, Facebook, when you're on Facebook, right, there's plenty of things that you do and pages that you visit. So even website pages that you visit, if they've got this Facebook tracking pixel on there, or they've got a lot of other tracking pixels on there, because there is some level of shared data going on. But if there's if people are tracking your websites that you visit, then Facebook's getting a really good understanding of what you do. An interesting point is that Facebook has somewhere in the vicinity of 240 data points on you. It's probably more than you know about yourself, to be honest. And those data points come from the things, ads, posts that you post on your Facebook page, replies, the memes that you look at, the websites that you visit, the Facebook pages that you like, the Facebook pages that you comment on, what you comment on, everything that you do. And it's not scary Big Brother stuff. I mean, honestly, I don't think it is. I think it's actually good, because it allows Facebook and Instagram to kind of like personalize the content for you. Otherwise, you probably see stuff that would be completely irrelevant, and you would just lose interest in Facebook altogether. So what this does then is that allows us as advertisers and you as business owners trying to advertise your business to be able to say, hey, I'm looking for mums and dads, right? Parents of kids. So what would a parent be interested in that somebody that's not a parent wouldn't be interested in? Write that down, because that is your gold nugget, right? Because a mum could be interested in your local gym, right? Or fitness or health or beauty, but so will somebody who's not a mum, right? A single woman or a single guy who doesn't have kids could also be interested in those. So those are not interests that we would consider define a parent, because what we're looking for is, what would a parent be interested in that someone who's not a parent not be interested in? And once we understand that, then it becomes a lot easier to really define our audience and tell Facebook, okay, this is the type of person that we're looking for in this area of this gender between these ages. So to do that, so that's all of the preliminary stuff out of the way. Does anybody have any questions on that? That's pretty straightforward to this part. All right, cool. So now we're actually going to get into the good stuff. We're actually going to build up this person, you know, and understand the interests and behaviors that a parent would have, that someone who's not a parent would have. So one of the things that we can look at is what are the ages of the kids that we're looking at. So let's say we've got toddlers. Let's say we've got a mummy and me class, and we're looking for parents of kids that are really little, like, you know, that 1 to 3 year mark. Well, we can go, well, what would a parent like? Well, maybe she might like, you know, Johnson's. Did I spell that right? Johnson & Johnson products. So she might like Johnson & Johnson products, and maybe somebody that's not a parent might not like it. But I use this specific example because it gives me a little gotcha in here. So we can say, okay, they might like Johnson & Johnson. But over on the right-hand side here, you'll see a little classification. And so the first Johnson & Johnson option is actually for employers. So basically people, and you can see on the right, the little box, people who listed their employer as Johnson & Johnson in their Facebook profile. So that's actually not going to be of help. So when you search an interest, have a look at these classifications on the right-hand side, and there's only about 3 or 4. There's employers, there's interests, there's behaviors. I think there might be one other one, but just be aware of that. So in terms of the Johnson & Johnson example, we'd want to make sure that we hit this interests one, and you can see in the box on the right, it says people who have expressed an interest in or like pages related to Johnson & Johnson. Now, what this means is that if you've liked the Johnson & Johnson Facebook page, maybe follow them on Instagram, maybe you've responded to a comment, you didn't like their page, you know, not didn't like it, but you haven't actively liked their page, but you've responded to a comment, or you've liked something they've done. Somebody shared something with you from Johnson & Johnson, you visited their website. All of these activities indicate that, you know, you have some level of interest in that particular brand. Now, I was talking to Facebook probably about 3 or 4 months ago, and posed a question to them: what if a mum who likes Johnson & Johnson 5 years later, because she's liked it on her Facebook page and hasn't unliked it, is no longer interested in Johnson & Johnson, so therefore is not a good target person? Would she show up in my targeting? And their response was that people who have it's really looking at, it's prioritizing people who have recent and more frequent activity. So if you've got an interest, because we don't go through and unlike pages when they're no longer relevant, but if we're not actively engaged, you know, we're not visiting their website, we're not engaging on their page, so on and so forth, then we're probably not going to get picked up in this audience. And if we do, it's going to be really at the bottom. We're probably not going to get served as many ads. So that was a question that has taken a long time to get answered. So think about these interests as interests that people would have, you know, like now, you know, within, you know, like this year and last year and this coming year, like within that sort of 12 to 24 month bracket as being interested in. So if I pick Johnson & Johnson, and we're going to keep going through and picking some more, but before we pick some more, let me just explain this interface a little bit, because it's super helpful. Once we've clicked on at least one interest in here, you've got the ability to type a demographic or an interest or a behavior in here, but you've also got an option to click on these suggestions, and then you can also browse. Now, browsing is something you probably don't necessarily want to do, because there are hundreds and it will take you down an absolute rabbit hole. But you know, if you're interested in that, it can be interesting. The only time I would use the browse is if I wanted to maybe go down into the to the demographics and have a look at, you know, some things here, especially if you see this one here is this all parents. Now, this all parents will give you, again, it's going to give Facebook a really good indication of who you're wanting to target. It would be really nice if it actually was all the parents in your community. It isn't, but it is a really, really good interest or really good demographic to include. So one of the things that you can do in here is you can have a look at, parents with adult children 18 to 26. Well, no, not interested in that. 6 to 8, yeah. 3 to 5, 9 to 12, 13 to 17. So you might go through there and you might just check, for your gym, you might check, but basically just check whichever of these makes sense in terms of the ages of the kids that you provide programs for. So let's tick all of those and include them in here. Once we've done that, and you can see that now they've been populated up here, and you can see demographics, parents, all parents. Once we've done that, one of the little secret weapons is the suggestions box. Now, when you click on suggestions, what the suggestions does is it looks at what you've got and then starts to suggest additional things that may be relevant. And so I'm going to take out Johnson & Johnson because that was my initial example. So why I love starting with the parents is that when I look at the suggestions, it will give me things related to parents with toddlers between 1 and 2, 3 and 5, so on and so forth. And if you have a look through all of these interests down here, you'll see they're very, very, parent oriented, right? So you can come through here and you can look at, you might even say, hey, I want to look at people that are married. For a parents audience, I would probably exclude that because there's a lot of, people who are parents that aren't married. So, we don't want to exclude there. Child might be a little bit too, you also have to think about how wide and how broad it is and how specific it is, because we don't want or need to put in hundreds of things in here. In fact, to start with, I would only put a few in here and then build up. Again, and this is not a sell for the Academy because you can get it for free, but in the Academy we actually build out the audience and you can literally see everything that we've used in all of our ads. But it's a really good idea to understand this process as well. So you can go through and go, okay, well, preschool could be good because what's the chances of a 25-year-old single female or male who doesn't have kids and doesn't have a family being interested in preschool? Probably pretty low. So you can put preschool in there. Primary school, primary education. And one of the good things about suggestions is it gives you suggestions that are very tailored to what you've got up here to help you refine. The downside to suggestions is that exact same thing, because it does start to give you, if you start clicking all baby stuff, you'll start seeing more baby stuff, right? You'll start seeing more and more baby options. If you start clicking older things, which we've clicked too many, then it will try and define you down a path, which is really good because it gives you that option. But one of the things that you can do is as you start building this out, is go through each classification, right? Each year classification and go, okay, 3 to 5, what would a parent who's got a kid between the ages of 3 to 5 potentially be interested? So they may be interested in, you'll know I've done this before, let's say Scary Mummy, right? Which is some page, apparently it's pretty cool. They might be interested. You might say, well, what about somebody with 9 to 12? You might say Scouts, Scout Association, Girl Scout cookies, probably not. Club Scouting, Boy Scouts of America, maybe. Maybe soccer. They're interested in soccer, so it probably wouldn't be friends of soccer fans, probably wouldn't be soccer fans, any of that sort of stuff there. But I do believe that there is something around, maybe there's not, I thought there was something around soccer. Oh, there we go, American Youth So there's like American Youth Soccer. So you could say, maybe people are interested in, now, not everybody interested in American Youth Soccer is going to have kids, but a bunch of people, may do. And so what we're doing here is we're really trying to, kind of define and really give Facebook some guidelines as to, okay, these people in this community who are aged between 21 and 65 plus, who are male or female, the types of people in that community that I want to target are, they either sit in the demographic of being a parent with kids of this age, which gives us a section of those people. But to try and find the rest of the parents, we're also looking for, soccer mums might be interested in American Youth Soccer. They might, be interested in Baby Shop. Parents might be interested in club scouting. I've got a list up here, right? So Disney on Ice, H&M, American Girl, homeschooling, box tops for education. There's so many different interests that you can think of, and all you need to do is, like, if you're a parent, think about the things that you're interested in that relate to your kids. But then also ask, maybe ask some of the parents in your gym and say, hey, I'm just trying to do some research. We're trying to find, what parents are interested in. What, where do you buy, your kids' clothes? What other activities do you do with your kid? Are your kids involved in? Oh, they're involved in scouts. They're involved with guides, or we buy our clothes from, I don't know, whatever kids store there is, right? Navy for Kids or something like that. And so as you start to build this stuff up, then you can start typing it in there. And so you might talk to somebody and they might say, we buy our stuff from, well, actually, let's go Navy, because I know there's a Navy for Kids brand. So we can go, it's Old Navy, I think, isn't it? Old Navy. We can see Old Navy, but there's nothing for kids. Okay, so that's not going to work. We might go, somebody might say Oshkosh, and go, oh, okay, well, Oshkosh Bigosh, which is a kids' clothing store, that is available. So we might click on that option. Somebody might say that, hey, we buy our kids Fisher Price toys. So you go, okay, well, let's try typing in Fisher Price. So what you're seeing here is, like, as you start to get information feeding into you from the research that you're doing, the thoughts that you're having around what parents might be interested in, you take those brand names and you start typing them in and see whether or not they come up. So, okay, Fisher Price comes in. Well, that's great. Toys R Us. What's R Us? Well, actually, that does come in, so that's okay. I'm trying to find one that doesn't. You might say, so you might type things. It might be, say, a local shop might not, and probably wouldn't show up. So not every business, not every brand shows up in this interest search, because the brands have to be of a certain size. I'm not talking about a size of company, but a size of like a certain amount of Facebook page likes. And Facebook hasn't disclosed how it determines the size, but because it could be a small company but a lot of page likes. So basically it determines what it believes is of a significant size to be able to be shown as an interest that you could then target. Just to show you the suggestions tool again, and you can see, now, Cafe Mum. Well, that's actually, that could be quite interesting. You can see that there's starting to be some other things that start popping up in here, and now we're not just baby centric, right? We've got Club Scouting, United States Soccer Federation, and just because it creates these suggestions doesn't mean that these suggestions are right for you, right? Because the United States Soccer Federation would not be a good interest to target parents. That's why these are suggestions. But Girl Scouts of the USA, okay, well, we'll think about Club Scouting, Boy Scouts of America, Girl Scouts of the USA, would be a really good option as well. Brownie, Girl Guides, and one of the things you can look at over here as you start adding them in, one of the most common questions I get is like, how many should I actually add here? What that question really depends on is have a look at this number, this potential reach at the top here. And at the moment, this potential reach is 81,000. And you know that you've pretty much covered everyone. When you start adding interests, so I'm going to pick one here that's maybe not hugely big. Well, let's do Gymboree. That's a clothing place, I believe. When we add an interest in, and the potential reach doesn't start growing too much. So if I'm adding new interests in, okay, it's grown a little bit, and that number's really not growing, then we really probably don't need to add a ton more. In fact, sometimes you can find one, like, I don't know, maybe like half a dozen audiences that'll probably give you most of what you need. So you don't need to create, like 70, 80 interests. What I would actually recommend you do is start off with, maybe a dozen. I would absolutely recommend doing the parents with early school age children, and then looking at interests that relate to those parents who have children of that age. Now, the second part to this is really around that demographic. So if you're promoting your gym as a whole, or your dance school, your swim club as a whole, and you have programs for kids from, say, 1 right through to 17, then you'll put all of these, and you may end up with 30 odd different interests, because what you want to try and do is you probably want to try and find about 10 interests for each, or 8 to 10 interests for each demographic. So let's find 8 to 10 interests for parents with kids between 1 and 2 years, 8 to 10 interests for parents with preteens, 9 to 12 years, so on and so forth. There will be some crossover there, but you try and find 8 to 10 interests for parents of kids of that specific age. So you're going from, Huggies diapers to Disney to Girl Scouts to American Youth Soccer, right? Kind of going all the way up. And what I would actually recommend you do is actually just make a note of that, of these things as you find them, and write them down. The reason for that is that you then might look at doing an ad where you're just targeting your mummy and me classes, or a particular rec gymnastics class where the ages are, maybe you're only targeting kids between 7 and 13 for a particular rec class. Well, then what you can do is you can come through here and you can do another ad. I'm going to get rid of some of these. Got quite a few in here by the looks of it. There we go. And so you can do another one, and you can say, okay, well, I'm just going to target parents with preteens for this particular program. And if we have a look at the suggestions on here, we can see that the preteen interest that it comes out straight away is, very different than what the suggestions were when we had all of the demographics on there. And we can go through here and go, okay, maybe private school, maybe children's clothing, and then we can do our own research and say, okay, well, maybe Scouts, youth soccer, Kirk Cameron, box tops, education, and things that would be within that group, because that then allows us to do an ad that's not just for the whole organization, but for a particular program. Does anybody have any questions on that at this stage? Does that sound pretty logical? So the key with it is really just kind of like stepping back and just thinking, talking to people, thinking about it as a parent, talking to other parents, and just really kind of like thinking. And we actually, when we first start any audience building, we start literally with a spreadsheet or a Google Doc or a piece of paper and a pen or whatever, and just start brainstorming and writing some things down. And then we'll take those ideas and just come into here and start typing them in and see, does this register as an interest? But definitely start with that parents with preteens parents with young kids, and get those demographics up first. And to do that, browse demographics, parents, all parents, and then just check off the ones that are relevant to the particular campaign that you're running. As far as setting up the ad set, that really is that's the heavy lifting. Is this area here? Is the setting the location, deciding whether or not you're going to target ages and genders, and then setting up your detailed targeting. There is an option to reach people beyond your detailed targeting when it's likely to improve performance. You can play with that. We've seen mixed results with that. It's one of those things that you can maybe test, and we have seen it work. We've also tested and seen it not work. One of the things with any advertising is, you have to test, and you have to test, and you just constantly have to test. And what worked today might not work in 6 months, and so you do get that refinement. The biggest thing around testing is just be deliberate. If you switch something on, if you check a box, understand what it is that you're checking. Click on the little information icon, and if you want to learn more, then you can learn more about it and just get a bit of an understanding as to what you're actually doing, and just be cognizant of the fact that, hey, I've got this audience, but I have turned on this option to reach people beyond what I've said to Facebook. So Facebook's looking at this, and it's going to try and find other people. It might do really well for me. It might not do really well for me. I'm going to assess the results over the next month or so. In terms of everything else, I would actually leave placements as automatic, and it's my recommendation. It's a recommendation from Facebook. It's part of an initiative that they call the Power 5, which is allow Facebook to do the heavy lifting. Give Facebook's algorithm room to work. Don't try and be too controlling and tell it what to do, because you'll probably find you'll get worse results and it'll cost you more. If you allow Facebook's algorithm to do the work, and you just give it some really good parameters and guidelines to do that work in, it will work. And with placements, what we've seen typically is it will really give you more focus on the placements that are going to work for you, which is typically going to be newsfeed, maybe a little bit of right hand, Instagram. It's going to feed out to Instagram. It's going to feed out to stories, and so on and so forth. So just leave that at the recommended. Same with optimization and delivery. Unless you have a specific reason to do so, just leave it as that for this. Just leave it as the default for whichever campaign you're going into. Don't ever change anything unless there's a reason for you to do so. And there are reasons to test it out, but understand what those are and why you're going to do it, and then and then monitor that. But for most of the time, leave the optimization and delivery as default, because we've chosen a traffic objective. So it kind of makes sense that we wanted to get clicks on our ad. So link clicks kind of makes sense. We don't have to worry about anything else in here, cost controls or anything like that. And we would go to the next stage, which is just building our ad. Again, put a good name. It'll have our Facebook page. It'll have our Instagram account. I haven't got an Instagram account connected to this training academy ad account, but it'll have your Facebook page, your Instagram account. You'll create your ad, and you'll come through here, and it will give you the option to select, your image. In which case you can, find whatever image you want to use. You'll have your text here, which will appear in the right-hand side. And it's just like making a post, right? It's just in a different, it's in a different kind of format. The main difference to a post, though, is that at the bottom on the right-hand side here, you do get you get the ability to have a headline and a button, right? So typically a post will have the text and just the creative. With an ad, you can use the text and the creative, and you can also add a headline and then a button. So headline, you just type in here. So for example, we've got sign up for your free trial class today. Something that really, was people scrolling through, they see the image, it captures their attention, and on images, happy smiling kids doing things that they love that represent what you do. A kid doing doing ninja, who's loving it. You know, this girl here, you know, she's happy. She's obviously a gymnast. You can play around in there. And then the last part of this is the destination. And this destination is, you can either say, I want to go to a website, in which case you'd put your website address, or you can put a phone call, in which case you can put your phone number. And you can see that over on the right-hand side here, the button will change depending on what you put. You can also put a Facebook event. So if you have got a Facebook event, you can type your event name in here. And again, you can go, you know, it'll say buy tickets. And then if you've got a website, it will say learn more. And down here, you have the last thing, which is the text that is actually on the button. So by default, it shows you learn more. And you can say, you know, learn more. You could say sign up. You can say apply now, or whatever you want. So whichever destination option you choose, then you change the text as per what Facebook allows you to change it to, and that's your ad now completed. So we created our campaign, created our ad set. We know who that ad is going to, where it's going, and what people we want to target. We've created an ad that's now going to be shown to those people. And the last thing in this would be to click on the publish button, and it will go ahead and publish. This is going to give me an error because I haven't filled in the website, but you would see, you know, your ad is successfully published, and it's now live out to the World Wide Web and everybody in your community that you've decided to target. So that's it. We've gone end-to-end campaign in 1 hour and 8 minutes. So thank you for hanging on. I'm happy to hang around for a bit if you have any questions. And I think, you know, this is being recorded as well, so you can go back through and, you know, kind of like pull out the different parts and spend some time in there.
How long do you typically run an ad campaign for?
This is going to sound really flippant, but as long as it keeps working. You know, you could have an ad campaign that, man, if it keeps working, just run that day in, day out. Think about like a newspaper. For a good example, if you run a newspaper ad and every week that's just driving people to phone you up and come in and go to your website, and yeah, it's just constantly bringing people in. Don't fix what's not broken, right? Just keep on running. Now, if it's not giving you the results, then you would try and change. You might try and change the image. You might try and change the headline. Maybe change the offer or the thing that you feel is most important. In terms of like end to end, how long should I run an ad campaign for? It really does come down to, you know, how long you want to get results for that particular objective. So if you're running it for an event, then it'll just be within the parameters of the event date. If you're running it for a particular, like for summer camps, it'll be, you know, within the summer camps. If it's just generally for ongoing like rec programs, you just run it, just keep running it.
Yeah, there is a element that ads sometimes get tired over time, and you see the performance slowly drop off, and that might be when you look at it to refresh it, you know, to another image, slightly different text or whatever. But as Russell said, the whole goal is to get inquiries. And, you know, a successful campaign's causing mums to reach out to you, right? Tomorrow, we're going to be working on talking about getting those inquiries converted into business, into actually students. We've actually got a training process that's been developed over a couple of years, you know, getting good feedback from our clients and, you know, seeing the best practices and putting it together. It's a pretty sound process that does work. So today, you know, on Monday, we were learning about messaging and branding so we could actually get a good message out to mums. Yesterday, we spoke about what your goals can be and what your opportunity potentially is out there, especially with technology that we have today. Russell's obviously shown you the technology today just on Facebook. We didn't talk about Google or anything else. We might end up doing a Google training at some point, Russell, which might be interesting. But Facebook, if especially with limited budgets, we've found Facebook to be the best tool for kids activity centers, gymnastics gyms, and cheerleading gyms and so forth, to actually reach mums and actually get an action. And obviously today we've learned about how to target those people. So tomorrow we're going to be talking about how to convert them into business once we've got them, right? Once we've got that inquiry. So that's it, guys. We don't want it to be too long, unless you have any other questions. Obviously, Russell's happy to answer, Laurie or Dustin, or Galaxy All Stars. If you do have
Yeah, quick question. And maybe this is an obvious answer, but with the Facebook advertising, is there a clear way to track the success of that? Does Facebook do that for us, or is that going to be customer driven, or how do we know how successful it is?
Yeah, that's a good question. So Facebook does track a bunch of different things. So in terms of on its platform, it tracks things like how many people have engaged with your ad, how many clicks you've had on the ad, how many page likes you've had, and so on and so forth. Off Facebook, the tracking depends on, part of the tracking is based on having Facebook, what they call a Facebook tracking pixel, which is a little snippet of code that you get when you set up your Facebook business account and ad account that you have with your developer or yourself to install on your website. And then there's a few things that you can actually do there. You can actually say, you can actually tell Facebook, for example, if you've got a contact page, when people successfully complete a contact form and they go through to the thank you page, you can say to Facebook, hey, when people hit that Facebook page, I want to report on that as being what we'll say a lead, and so that can then show in your in your Facebook Business Manager. That is taking it to another level. Regardless of what you do, I do recommend that getting a Facebook pixel on your website. I think it's absolutely mandatory, even if you don't use it for tracking. Obviously, the true gauge is, if you're getting clicks on your ads, and you're getting your phone ringing, or you're getting more people, you'll know whether or not you're getting, that phone's ringing a bit more, or you're getting more inquiries, and that's really going to be a good indicator of what's happening. The analytical side, I would look at it as, the best thing you want to look at is, are people, am I getting a good what we call a click-through rate? Am I getting good clicks on my ads? And anything over probably about 0.8% click-through rate is probably pretty good. But at the end of the day, no matter what's happening on the ads, really that benchmark is, are you getting more? Do you feel like you're getting more phone calls? Do you feel like you're getting more traffic to your website, more inquiries from your website forms?
Yeah, and ultimately for me, it's like how many inquiries are you getting through? And it's sometimes hard to figure out if somebody's walked through the door because of an ad and they've seen your ad and they've looked into you and then they just decided to walk through the door. It's harder to track phone calls as well. Sometimes people look, mums especially tend to do a lot of due diligence, so they'll look through stuff and then they'll come to the decision, okay, it's time for me to move. And from a tracking of clicks, engagement in the ads, whether or not someone maybe sent a request through to you from an email, that can all be tracked through Facebook, which are all elements of, you can see, okay, hey, the ad's performing well, and hey, we seem to be getting phone calls, so it's probably working really, really well. Obviously, on your end, you could ask, how did you hear about us? That's not a foolproof system, though. Oftentimes people are like, well, I don't know, I saw you somewhere, so it's not a wholly foolproof system. What we know, though, is our gyms tell us that when they start working and going through this process, that they just start getting a lot more phone calls, a lot more inquiries, and start signing up more people, which ultimately the measure is, are you signing people up, right? And with that, tomorrow we're going to be talking about that. So now we've learned how to drive people to our door, to drive people to our phone and our email. Now, how do we actually get them over the line and do business? I'm going to talk about that tomorrow at 11 o'clock. So with that, unless there is any more questions, sorry to, Laura, you might have some follow-up questions. If there isn't,
we're good. You guys are great. Thank you.
I'm going to lock Russell up in the dungeon to start cranking out some good code and marketing for us again. We'll lock you back up, Russell. We'll let you out once a month to talk to people.
That's it.
Back in.
That's my thing.
And obviously, if you have any questions, reach out to Ella or myself. Reach out into, if you're not part of the gymnastics marketing group, I highly recommend you all join. I think most of you have joined by now, and start utilizing that platform. And obviously the Gymnastics Marketing Academy, again, if you haven't already signed up to that, sign up to it. It's a pay what you can, so $0 if you can pay $0. If you can pay something, pay something. I'm grateful if you can. And then obviously if you want to work with us more directly, you can always reach out to us, and Ella's just thrown all those links, thank you Ella, into the chat. So with that,
we'll send out an email with those as well.
Yeah, we'll be sending out an email with all that as well. So we'll be talking to you guys tomorrow. Looking forward to seeing you.
Are the recordings of the Zoom calls available yet?
Sorry?
Yes. So this Zoom will be available tomorrow at 3 p.m. I'm scheduling them all out for 3. So the one from yesterday is going to be scheduled pretty soon. So it's out at 3 p.m. Central Time, guys. Central Time. Very important. But yeah, it should be already on our YouTube. But if you want it in the group, it's being scheduled out at that time. But yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Okay, guys.
All right.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you. See ya.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye-bye.